Watch out, watch out. Let me get a shot. Where they at? Where they at? Put on that rooftop. Hey. Give me a fucking 42 in the United States.
We're east of the riverbed. And we're taking fire from the west. Roger, stand by. We're popping smoke. Gun runs north and south. West of the smoke. West of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Give it to me. I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
Welcome to the Combat Leadership Podcast. Here's our host, Mike Etor.
Asad Khan, welcome back, my friend. Part 2. Had a great episode, part 1. Really good content. Looking forward to this one. How are you, Asad? How you been?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thank you. All well.
Well, great. Listen, we left off last episode, and the next topic that I'd like to start with is that very controversial topic of discipline, because I think it means many things to many people and not all good. And I think that's a lot of the fault of leadership, you know? So where I'm going with this is there have always been, since the Roman legions, the troops have always hated what they called the garrison chicken shit. I'm sure the Roman legionnaires like, why do we have to scrub our shield every day? Why do we have to dig in every time we stop? Why do we have to get in formation and dig in and all of that, this discipline stuff? So in today, what we did as young Marines, and they're still doing it, is there's a garrison focus on personal appearance, look good in uniform, get a haircut, don't be fat. You got to do well physically, you know. The barracks have to be field day every Thursday, inspection Friday morning, and liberty secured and all that, inspections, all these policies. What's the point? And I think a lot of leaders just say, 'cause I said so, shut up, do it, which means nothing. And I mentioned, I think in part 1, where I actually had that old World War II Korea and Vietnam Marine explain to me why we do a lot of things in peacetime. And it does transfer. No, he said, nobody got in my ass for not being shaved on Guadalcanal. But they damn sure would have gotten my ass if that machine gun wasn't clean and didn't work when the Japanese were doing bonsai charges on me. And they did, you know. And so my question to you, my friend, is, you know what I'm talking about. Does this peacetime stuff, because we talked about it, you know, the other day on part 1 aside, I don't care how hardened you are as a combat guy, if you stay in for 20 or 30 years, most of your time is going to be in garrison, peacetime. And so you do have to look the part. The barracks have to be clean. The bases must be clean. You know, you have to have regulation haircut, all that stuff. So does this stuff have value? Does it transfer to combat effectiveness? And what's your recommendations? Well, first of all, how did you do it with your platoon, company, battalion? What did you see others do effectively? And what's your advice for that corporal or sergeant or lieutenant or staff sergeant when the young troop, you know, who doesn't know shit, but just why? Why do I have to have a haircut and all that? How can you advise him? What kind of a script, so to speak, can you say, here's how you explain these things? So I'll shut up and let you have at it, my friend.
Yeah, I think, you know, discipline is probably one of the most important things in a troop, in a Marine, and an officer, right? And the reason being is it's all about standards, and you can't selectively pick standards and say, I'm going to apply this standard and I'm going to, you know, ignore this one. It ain't going to work, right? Because you're typically going to, you know, it's a 50-50 proposition. You may pick the wrong one. And, you know, when combat comes, you know, you may be in deep shit. So it's about application of standards, and units that can do everything well, you know, the field days, you know, looking squared away, fresh haircuts, clean weapons, typically do well when it comes to field evolutions also. They're dug in properly. They've got their aiming stakes down. They've got their fire plan sketches down, because it becomes muscle memory over time. And you really have to enforce that without hesitation. A good officer, a good staff NCO, and a good NCO is always looking for ways to improve standards and improve discipline. And but the problem is this. The troops get tired of getting shit upon and every day being told, do this, do this, do this, because we don't attach a reward to discipline. Discipline has to have a reward with it. It's just like training, and I hate to use the analogy of a dog, but if a dog does well, you got to give him a treat. And the same thing applies to your Marines. If they do well, and and you give them benchmarks for 30 days, we don't get any DUIs, you'll get a 72. I used to walk around my battalion area with these cards I had printed, 72-hour Liberty cards, and I'd stick them inside garbage, like a wrapper laying there. I'd stick my card in there. A soda can laying on the ground, I'd stick the card in there. And and the Marines were like vacuum cleaners. They're going up and, if they saw a piece of garbage laying anywhere in the parking lot or anything, they'd run out there and grab it, just hoping that they'd find that Liberty card. And if they found the Liberty card, they'd go give it to the first sergeant, they cash it in. They can get a 72. So that's how you sort of, make it interesting, and it's not a punishment, right? And there's got to be rewards with it. If the barracks Friday morning inspection are good, guess what? Noon, we're out of here.
Yeah.
And let the Marines loose. Let them go down to Onslow Beach and and chase fat girls. There's nothing wrong with that either. So. So you always got to think is how can I motivate the Marine to improve his standards and improve his discipline? So you got to have competitions amongst units, right? Amongst platoons and amongst companies. The company that comes first in the field day inspection, battalion commander's inspection, is going to get a 72. And I'll tell you what, they'll bust their ass for that 72. You know this, you've been a troop, you've been a Marine, they'll do anything for that 72. And I think that's so damn important. So it's how you approach and how you teach discipline. You don't want to stand there with a hammer and just keep beating it down. I'll tell you what, as hard as our discipline was, we rarely had office hours. And I can go into some stories and examples of it. And the reason being is there were some that were mandatory for drug use and stuff. I had no allowance, right? I mean, that's the commanding general's guidance. And if you pop positive, you're going to get hammered. But for the rest of the stuff, it was chicken shit stuff, right? So I'd bring the Marine in, and I'll tell you this much. I would never allow his leadership to come in and talk to me without the Marine being present because it has to be equitable. And the Marines knew that they were going to get a fair shake. So if the first sergeant or the company commander came and tried to sway me beforehand and to get in my ear, I tell him, get out. Otherwise, I'm going to find him not guilty. Okay? You want to talk to me, bring the Marine in here so he can defend himself. And Marines appreciated that. And as a result of that, our NJPs just went down. I mean, we just didn't have any discipline issues per se. Stupidity happens all the time, and you just got to deal with it. So standards are very important. There's no compromise in standards, in my opinion. And every time the unit with the highest standards is going to prevail. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I love that, and I want to say some things about that. So let's talk about the tradition of field day and all of that. I started out in squad bays, open squad bays. Yep. And then, of course, they built the bricks, the barracks, the rooms. Sure. And I used to hear, old timers, of which I was one, saying, "Oh, this is effed up. We need to go back to open squad bays." Well, I agree. As a leader, it was very convenient to have all your guys in one open squad bay, But I got to tell you, the people that say we should go back to open squad bays, sure, if you live in one too, because I lived in it. And I got to tell you, as a young Marine, non-drinker really for the most part, I got tired of being asleep, and then here we are, 4 a.m. The guys come in from the E Club lit up. Yeah. And they're raising hell and waking up. So at a minimum, I'm going to be losing sleep. At a maximum, somebody's picking a fight with me. I got to hop out of the rack and have at it with these guys. I'm tired of that shit. You know what I mean? There's just no privacy. I couldn't read a book and all that. So let's dispel that. I am not a fan of open squad bays for boot camp. Yes. OCS, sure. You know, it's that tribal thing. After that, but let me tell you what I did with field day. And you may not know this, Asad, because I predate you a bit. I had, in the late 60s, the Marine Corps was really short of lieutenants. And so what they did was they went out, particularly combat arms lieutenants and particularly infantry lieutenants. So they went out and they commissioned a few thousand, several thousand sergeants, staff NCOs, gunnies, even a couple first sergeants, and they made them temporary second lieutenants with the understanding you're an officer now. You ain't got to go to TBS. You're an officer. You're ready. Sometimes it happened in Vietnam. You're a staff sergeant one day, a lieutenant the next, and you're gonna go back someday. You're gonna go back to the enlisted ranks, and if that's 7 years from now and your staff sergeant, your group is now a first sergeant, you're going back as a first sergeant. But you'll get to retire at your highest pay grade, which was usually for these guys captain, which is a significant pension increase. A captain, sadly, that's a whole nother topic. I can't figure out why a retired captain makes a shitload more in retirement than a first sergeant or even sergeant major. It doesn't make sense to me, you know, but we can talk about that another time. And so what happened was they were good in combat, but then when they rotated to the rear, prior to then, no staff NCO worth his salt or NCO would ever stand for an officer involved in field day. The gunny would say, "Sir, this is me. I got it." You're welcome to come in and observe, as always, sir. And the officers are always welcome to walk through the area. But I don't want to see lieutenants wiping down and checking for dust and all of that. Well, what a lot of these guys did, they were wearing bars, but they were still acting like staff NCOs. And so that's when the officers started getting involved in field day and all of that. So I knew that. And when I first came in, officers were not involved in 74 in field day. It was all a staff NCO and NCO-led thing. And what I presume is Friday morning, the gunny would go to the first sergeant and company commander and say, "Hey, barracks are up, except 3rd platoon. Look like shit. Just want to let you know that." And of course, the first sergeant would say, "Sir, with your permission, 3rd platoon comes in 05 tomorrow morning on Saturday, and we're going to get it right." And that was what they did. So the reward was there and all of that. And so what I did when I was a company commander is I refused to let my officers be involved in field day. I followed this model. And I got to tell you, that was so refreshing to my staff NCOs because I was trusting them like staff NCOs. You know, really trusted them. Sergeants, too. Now, here's where the reward. I love what you're saying because I realized that I did it. So we think alike on this. I did establish a policy if the gunny feels that this company or a certain platoon just consistently does so well, let's start doing them every 2 weeks. You don't have to do field day every week, every 2 weeks. Right. And sometimes we gave him a month off from it. But he said, "Now look, you know how a gunny talks. Look, you assholes, I'm going to walk through. And if you go to shit, we're field daying on Sunday morning. So you still got to maintain your barracks, but you got Thursday off. We don't have to do it anymore. We don't have to do it once a week if you earn it." You know, and so I love what you're saying. I think that's one of the best tips you've given so far is all of this discipline. And we'll talk a little bit more about it if you'd like. I do think you have to explain why they're doing it and then reward them for doing it, you know, reward them. And then I think get your thoughts on this. There is some that are going to sit out there, and I'm one of them, to say, "Asad, I hear you about the reward." And of course, as a commander, I did it. But there are also certain things that are just the minimum driver's license standards for being a Marine or a soldier. Be in shape, look good in uniform, take care of yourself, self-reliance and responsibility. So I'll shut up. Any additional thoughts on this topic?
Well, it's how you approach things. And when you become a company commander, it's very important which foot you step out with, right? With your left foot or your right foot. And I'll tell you this much. I have done some crazy shit, and I'll share a couple of examples with you. So my first barracks inspection, and you've done this too. I know in my mind, there's no way in hell they're passing it, because I'm going to set the tone today, right now, right? And they fail. We're going to reinspect. Reinspection, they fail. Now I've amped them up, right? That same day. So I tell my gunny, I said, Gunny, you guys ain't meeting the standards. I want to empty out every room in the barracks. And the gunny's like, pardon me, sir? I said, empty all the shit out, furniture, everything. So they drag everything out of the quad. And empty out the wall lockers, too. So the Marines are bringing out their uniforms and stuff. And I got everybody together. I said, let me tell you something, Marines. We can play this game every week. I expect your barracks to be squared away. I expect that, right? And I'll tell you what, from that day on, for 2 years when I was a company commander, we never had a barracks issue. They were always inspection ready every time, because they knew, what this guy was capable of doing. Same example in the armory. When I went in the armory, I purposely looked for a rusty weapon. I found that rusty weapon. Guess what happened? And I made a big deal about it. Called all the platoon commanders, get your Marines down here, and told the Marines, I said, Marines, I'm not confident right now, and I don't have the time to go inspect every weapon in this armory. So we're going to take everything out. Everything's going to get cleaned. And then the platoon commander is going to inspect everything and put it back in there. And then I'll spot check. So they took all the weapons out. I even made them take the wall locker out. You remember the steel wall lockers where the cleaning gear and all that stuff was? Now think about it. Yeah. Okay, the only way you can get that wall locker out is if you take it apart. So in the old days when we didn't have drills and stuff, they're doing it by hand. They took that damn thing out and put it through the window. Once everything is clean, they give me a thumbs up. I said, now put everything back. And I'll tell you what, I've never, ever had to worry about the weapons being dirty, because they knew what this guy is capable of doing, right? So by the same token, it's a tone you set, and the standard is right there. I'm not going to come around, Monday, Wednesday, whatever day I decide to walk through the barracks, they better be squared away. That's the bottom line. And I'm not here to, junk on the bunk shit. All I want, the reason I'm walking through the barracks is primarily for maintenance. For maintenance reasons. That's what I'm looking. The police sergeant's with me with his logbook, and we're checking that stuff to make sure that the Marines are taken care of. And the Marines understand that stuff. And once you set the right tempo, and I'll tell you what, they will, and this, they'll rise to the challenge, and it's climbing the ladder, every rung, slowly you get to the next higher rung. And Marines have to be squared away. There's no allowance for that. If I'm, and I in 40 some years, Mike, I've never gone to a barber. I cut my own hair. Right. And the reason I started doing that was, one, it was cheaper back then. You were paying the barber $5 and all that stuff. So I bought a set of clippers. I still have them for $20. And I told the Marines, I said, if I'm doing it, I expect you to do it. OK. And I know it costs a lot of money. I get that. But I spent $20 on these clippers, and we have them. The police sergeant has company clippers. We have a company barber kit. Use it. It's not to be in the storage. And, and we had company barbers. So when we went on deployment and stuff, we had Marines that were designated barbers, so they would cut everybody's hair. So you got to organize this and make and standards that you never bring down. I'll give you another example with Denny Hilly. When we used to go cold weather training, we're sitting in Reno waiting for airplanes. We're sitting on the tarmac. And I pulled out my boot brush. In those days, we had some black boots, and I started brushing my boots. And the company was trained, always key off the unit leader. They saw me brushing my boots. They all pulled out their boot shining kit. They all started cleaning them. And that's the type of, essay that they need to develop, the situational awareness. We were down at Cherry Point one time. A buddy of mine came to see us. I think we're going to Gitmo. And I was so proud of these Marines, Bravo 1-2. I said, watch this. And, we were sleeves up, and I put my sleeves down, right? And without saying a word, a company of 140 Marines, nobody said a word, no staff NCO screamed, no NCO screamed. Everybody just put their sleeves down, right? And sometimes I'd do it as a joke. I'd go out there, they'd be, sleeves down, and for the company formation, I'd go out there sleeves up. And then I'd say, First Sergeant, why is this company not in here? And then First Sergeant's like, sir, you got us, right? I mean, stuff like that. And the Marines got a kick out of that, right? And so you got to make it interesting and keep them on their toes. That's the bottom line. And never compromise on standards. There's zero compromise. But I can tell you this much, I took on, if you don't mind, I'd go into the battalion. 1-6,
Sure.
and I think there's some great lessons in this, because when I was a regimental XO for a couple of years, then they sent me down to 1st Battalion, 6th Marines. Now, keep in mind, 1st Battalion, 6th Marines was the only battalion left at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and they just come back from the UDP program from Okinawa. Everybody else has gone to Iraq. So these Marines are pissed off because, if you remember, they had stop loss going on. And when stop loss is going on, these Marines were told that they could not EAS. They can't go home. They're going to stay at Camp Lejeune. And it's a shell game that Headquarters Marine Corps plays because what they do is, the battalion is staffed, but we had 300 non-deployables dumped to us from other battalions. So it's essentially majority of the battalion was non-deployable. Right, so I've got this massive population, and it's really sad when you see that. It's on paper, the battalion staff. You got 800 some Marines, you're good to go. But in reality, half of them are non-deployables, and they don't want to train either. So what's the point of taking them to the field and thrashing them, right? And so at the time, we had 18 of 71 sergeants in the battalion. Think about that. We were literally just gutted, right? We had all new staff officers, all new chiefs, all new company commanders, all new lieutenants, and we got 400 new Marines all the way up to 30 days before deploying with the MEU.
Yeah.
Okay? And so this is what I'm dealing with, right? And we failed operational readiness evaluation that I mentioned yesterday with the saw gunners, machine gunners, and all sorts of stuff. But we qualified everybody. I literally sat down with the company commanders and my gunner and my OPSO and went down the list and identified who the machine gunners were, who the saw gunners were, who this was at every position, and we qualified them, right? We expended over 1 million 5.56 rounds, 1 million, right? Over 300,000 link rounds we expended. I did an AP Hill rotation twice, and one of the benefits of staying behind as a battalion was because all the ranges were available, and we maximized the utilization of it. And my S4 would come, sir, we've exceeded our ammo allocation. I said, great, keep going. I said, by the time they figure out that we've shot all this ammo, we'll be long gone. So keep ordering it, and that's exactly what happened, right? The battalion at the time, because just come from the UDP program, had no SOPs. And as you well know, as an infantry battalion, traditional infantry battalion, the SOPs are far different than a BLT, right? So we had to first write all our SOPs as an infantry battalion. And then once we got told that you're going to be a BLT, guess what? We had to get down and start writing SOPs as a BLT, because you're going to get evaluated by SOTG. And then to do that, I empowered the staff NCOs and my sergeant major to set up our own combat leaders course and NCO courses to train our leaders because they were new and to build that team. So basically a BLT gets about 6 months to form as a unit. We got 3 weeks. Think about that, 3 weeks, right? And we had, so now we're getting ready for combat, right? So all this training has changed. We've gone from, 3 rifle companies to a boat company to a mech company and to a helicopter-borne company, right? And then you've got all the other stuff, trap and all that other stuff you got to do, and different skill sets. Anyway, we started doing that. And we had no up-armored vehicles, none, zero, zip. Because all the motor pools were gutted, and they basically left me, garbage behind. Vehicles that weren't running, they hadn't been maintained, and all that stuff. And so the Marines that were non-deployable. Now think about this. I had about 350 of them. So one day formation, we asked for, raise your hand if you're an electrician, carpenter, plumber, if you have any special welder, any skills like that. from the non-deployable ones, right? So they raised their hands. So out of that 350, we made 2 maintenance platoons. And these Marines were absolutely drop dead fantastic. Their uniform became coveralls. We got them coveralls. They don't even have to wear utilities, right? And they had, literally Home Depot gave us stuff, right? The tool belt and all that, and they loved it. They loved this shit. So they went around fixing all our barracks, not only ours, but they went around fixing other battalions' barracks because they were gone to Iraq, right? The RBE guys. And so when we were getting ready to deploy, we had no up-armored vehicles. Now I'm thinking, holy shit, we got to go on deployment. My Marines are going to be exposed. And so we went out and got 3/8 steel plates, and we up-armored our own vehicles. And then we tested them. We fired an 81 millimeter mortar against them and a Claymore mine. And the plates held. And then we got a master sergeant that comes down from MEF and knocks on my door. Hey, Colonel, can I talk to you? What's up, Master Sergeant? Sir, you've done illegal maintenance on the vehicles. I'm literally sitting there, and my brain is, inundated with all this crap that I got to deal with. And I just looked at him. I was like, Master Sergeant, I know that. Get out of my office. And then he went to my sergeant major and, said, the colonel just threw me out of his office, and I knew him. I mean, we're friends. I knew the guy, but, he knew that's the last thing I want to worry about. If you want to gig me for up-armor my vehicle, have at it. We formed as a BLT, and now the problems happen, right? This is the problem, because your job as a commander is not only to train your Marines and, talk about mental and physical fitness. We would run in gas masks, and if you fell out of one of my formations, now company commander is responsible for training them, but once a week, I would take them out as a battalion. And if you fell out of my battalion run, and it'd be a 7-minute mile pace, it's a bit fast, but, you stay with me. Because I knew where we were going. And, and if you fell out, then guess what? You and your entire chain of command is going to come on the weekends, and I'll be the remedial PT officer. Staff incident officers didn't like that, right? But I told them, I said, let me tell you something. I gave you the responsibility to train these Marines, and he's not trained. Now I'm going to accept that responsibility, and I'm going to show you how it's done. So on the weekends, we'd all get together. I'd always have a little crew there, and we do remedial PT. But nonetheless, so that kind of kept the focus on physical fitness. We would do runs with gas masks and flak jackets, and I'd always get a call from the CG, and he's like, Genghis, what are you doing? I said, sir, I got it. They're fine. We're good. We got all the safety parameters taken care of. So they were ready, and the focus for the company commanders and the NCOs was really to focus down on the Marines and get them ready. My focus was to deal with the MU. The MU staff, now here's the dilemma that we have to deal with, right? The MU thinks that they're a brigades type element, right? And which is just a bunch of horse shit, in my opinion. And the reason for that is because the MU really has one maneuver element, but they use each one of those companies as a battalion type equivalent, right? And so they think they have 3 maneuver elements. Reality is you still have a battalion at the end of the day. You can call it whatever you want. So we had to go through all that. And the problem was, the MU staff wasn't trained. They weren't even close to our staff. We're just much faster in planning, in operations, in being able to load, backload ships and all that stuff. I mean, I was blessed with the staff that we had. They were incredible. They could do everything much faster, and our PTP was compressed. So it was a grind for us, big type grind, but we sucked through it. Christmas vacation was compressed, everything. And basically once we became a BLT, it was stay on until we deployed in February. So basically I had to fight to get the Marines their 10-day pre-deployment leave. And that's my responsibility as a commander. So we did that. And then some of the other issues that we had that people don't realize, and it's not just about Marines, it's how to deal staff to staff is so important. We were doing confirmation briefs on plastic slides. You remember those acetate slides on the projector? You remember that shit?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting on the I'm sitting on the WASP, and the confirmation briefs are just bullshit in my opinion, because they made them into production. Everything focuses on the confirmation brief when it should be focused on the freaking well deck where the Marines are rehearsing. If they don't know what the mission is, they don't know what the con ops is, they don't know what their task is, they're just sitting there blind on their packs, right, falling asleep. So the first confirmation brief, and it's all this dog and pony show, and basically you've got about 160 slides, and all this is next, 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 and I'm sitting there going, holy shit. I mean, you got to be kidding me. So the first confirmation brief, my raid force commander had to rebrief. And I was so freaking pissed because it was just chicken shit stuff. I took him back into my planning room, and I told him, I said, you know what, you're not briefing, I'll brief it. So I went back in there because I knew these fuckers, I knew these guys were, they wouldn't play that shit with me. And I got up there and briefed it. And not only that, I changed the damn brief. No more acetates, I went to PowerPoint. The reason I went to PowerPoint was, as the brief was being built, they've got a computer down the well deck. The Marines are seeing what the hell we're talking about, right? So they're prepping with us. So they get the 4 hours of rehearsals and prep. And the MU kind of fought us on that because they were so ingrained with the acetate slides and the R2P. I wrote the damn manual on it, the Marine Corps planning process. So and so that's the way we did it, and fortunately they agreed with that, right? So when we deployed in terms of training, getting ready, we never stopped training, Mike. We continued training all the way to Afghanistan, shooting on the from the elevators from the back of the ship. We humped on the ship. I had Marines, no shit, with their packs on, going up and down the well decks, up and around, to maintain their leg strength, right? And then we also had language and cultural classes. That was so damn important to educate them while we're transiting, so their brains open up and they don't know how to deal with the locals. Because and fortunately, I knew how to deal with that stuff. But the things that I didn't like is the shipboard etiquette. I remember first landing on the ship and they blow this whistle, the bosun's call. And 1-6 arriving and people standing at attention, and I'm just looking around going, holy shit. So I told the chief boat, I said, you don't need to do any of that shit for me. So the ship's XO calls me and he goes, hey, this is Navy etiquette. I said, walking the plank was Navy etiquette also. So we stopped it. You want to do it for yourselves and all that shit? Have at it. I don't need it, And anyway, so we also had this, which I hadn't been aware of, this Commodore's mess, right? Commodore's mess. I go in the Commodore's mess, and I was absolutely disgusted by it. Okay, we've got cloth, tablecloth, actual china, and what disgusted me was one of my Marines is standing there, and I'll send you the pictures if you want to show it to your viewers. In a waiter's jacket, he's all smiling at me. He sees the battalion commander, and I felt like, I felt embarrassed that, here's a Marine that I trained to, for combat, and he's a freaking waiter, waiting on me. I stopped eating in that damn place. I hated it. And everybody sit around, and then they backstab each other and all this happy horse shit. So I was not interested in that. So en route, when we went, fortunately, we got to stop in Albania. We did a ton of shooting over there. It was cold, it was wet, but it was fun. We offloaded in Qatar, and then obviously because of my previous background, the first time I was in Pakistan and all that we kind of talked about, we had to go to Pakistan to make sure that we had the landing rights and to be able to base our P3s there in Pakistan, and also to transit across the Pakistani airspace. And they're very kind because they knew me and all that stuff. So we land in Afghanistan, and this is in 2004. And we reconstituted as a BLT because everybody got flown in from LUD in C-17s. And we started doing left seat, right seat with the Army units over there because I wanted my NCOs to get out there and learn. And I think one of the smartest decisions that we made was normally when a unit would go out, they would go out the main gate and there's a bunch of Afghans standing out there as Terps, and they'd pick one and they'd go off with them, right? And I didn't want that. So I brought 40 Terps on the base. I got them cleared, and I assigned each squad their Terps, and they slept with them, they ate with them, and we built that camaraderie, right? And the first mission we're going out, the Terps got their masks on, and I stopped everybody. I said, take those damn masks off. My Marines are risking their lives for your country. I expect you to do the same. Take them off. And they did. So it was really good. And so there's really good camaraderie. But the problem is this. Let's talk about that. You know, as a MU, we spend hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars, and this is heresy, right? And people are going to condemn me for it. But I want to have this discussion. I think it's an important discussion. Are the MUs still relevant? I don't think so, and let me explain. But the reason being is it's cost-benefit analysis. You're a businessman. You work in the corporate world. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars on amphibious shipping. And when was the last time a MU was truly used as a MU that did an amphibious raid, that did a helicopter-borne raid? The last time was that pilot that was shot down in Kosovo, right? Grady. Was the trap mission, right? Yeah, remember that? Yeah. That was the last time.
Yeah.
And the last two times when we had to do NEOs, the Marine Corps couldn't even do. The one in Somalia and in Turkey for the earthquake, the Marine Corps couldn't even get there. So my point being is, you know, the MUs are great as long as they're tethered to an amphibious ship. But as soon as you get them ashore, that footprint becomes huge, and they become unwieldy, and I'll talk about that as we talk about some combat operations. But you know, the MUs, from the MU standpoint, this was the first MU that's gone the furthest inland, right? So they're really excited about that because that got some accolades. But the problem was that to go furthest inland was they'd established a FOB about 130 kilometers north of Kandahar, a town in Orzgan province called Tarankot. In Tarankot, the MU established a FOB. It was so damn big, 5-mile perimeter, it even had a 6,000-foot runway in it, right? And so that was the MU's FOB, and they expected the BLT to come sit on the FOB and guard this damn FOB. I wasn't doing that. Right? So I had to give 400 Marines, my artillery battery, my 81st platoon, my LAR, my AAVs, and my tanks people for the MU to protect their damn FOB. I went off into the hinterlands, right? And I kept my Marines out and about, and that's what we were supposed to do. But essentially our mission was, in first phase, was to establish a staging base at Kandahar Airfield, which we did. Then second phase, we're supposed to move up to Tarankot. And then focus of third phase was to provide security in Orzgan province for voter registration. Now, you got to be shitting me. You know, I trained all these Marines so damn hard, and I came all the way to Orzgan province to register freaking voters. I mean, what are you kidding me? You know, what a waste of freaking combat power, right? And so I'm like, you know, so I just went off. And they want to register voters, register voters. So I took some of my companies and went off about 60 kilometers away to a town called Kike. Now, this is very important. So you got Kandahar down here. You got Tarankot up there, right? You got Kike over here. And there's a place called Checkpoint 231. Okay, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So 60 kilometers, 60 kilometers, 60 kilometers, and about 120 kilometers straight line distance to Kandahar, right? So it's basically a triangle, right, between Kike, Checkpoint 231, and Orzgan in Tarankot, where the MU FOB was, which they later on named FOB Ripley. And so basically I established and I started doing some local patrolling and all this stuff, and we weren't doing anything. You know, the enemy's seen us. They see this big, massive Marine force of 400 or 500 Marines, and they ain't going to mess with us, right? We're like locusts. So the first, 3-4 weeks, nothing happened. And but I've got this element at 231, which is underneath the MU, which is the LAR platoon. They're establishing a checkpoint. And I used to butt heads with the MU commander about 231. Tell him, hey, I can put these Afghan militias there that we're paying $5 a day. I could put 20 of them for $100 a day, $3,000 a month. We don't need to put this platoon over there. They're isolated. Something happens. We can't get to them. It'll take me 4 to 5 hours to get to this platoon. It's going to take you 4 to 5 hours, and you don't have the forces to do it. All you got is a force recon platoon. That's it. And long and behold, guess what happens? You know, they get hit. On a night movement, they're going out to establish a cordon, and they get ambushed, right? And I lose Corporal Payne. Now I am freaking pissed because that's, you know, and I'm trying to be polite here,
Of course.
you know, but I'm getting amped up because he didn't listen to me. Because he wanted to show the CGTF commander that he is a brigade-size element with all these maneuver units that he's controlling, which is all bullshit, dog and pony show. And we lost a Marine because of that. So eventually, we ended up putting the Afghan militia down there and pulled the LAR back, right? And that should have never freaking happened. But it was a really eye-opener for me. And that day I decided, you know, that I was going to go out on every freaking mission. And that's what I did. And so then the commanding general comes down, really good guy, Major General Olson, Army, and he comes down for a brief. We're doing this another stupid operation, and all these operations names were named after Bruce Springsteen songs and albums, Asbury Park, Thunder Road, and all this nonsense. It was just show and tell, right? And how do you translate Asbury Park in Pashto? I don't know how to do it. It was just stupidity, right? It looked good on the base. So the CG comes down, and I have to brief him on Thunder Road, right, or Asbury Park, and I forget the name of the exact operation. And the CG is a good guy. He's kind of motivating dude, kind of liked me. And so after we get done, he goes, you know, I've spent all this resources to bring the Marines down here. You guys haven't done shit. And my response to him bluntly was, sir, turn me loose and I'll show you what I can do. You know, and so he said, let me talk to my staff. I'll come back to you. They turned us loose. And then what happened was we went on this operation. It was for 11 days. By that time, we're pretty much done. So rather than just driving back to Kandahar, I got permission to go from Tarankot to Deshopan, which is in another province, Kalat province, through these mountain passes, because I sort of developed a situation. I developed some relationships with the local militias, and my main militia guy was Governor John Mahmoud Khan and his militia. So I talked them into coming with us, and we're going to go all the way to Deshopan. We come to Deshopan, we go to Kalat. At Kalat, we'd make a right-hand turn. We go down to Kandahar, mission complete, we go home, right? That's what I told the Marines. So we go through these passes, and for 11 freaking days, every day we get in a gunfight. Every freaking day. The Taliban had moved into this area, and they were coming at us. And there's some pretty intense gunfights on a few times, right? And the Marines did fantastic. I mean, it was a battle drill, you know, and they named us the Death Walkers. Wherever these Marines go, they create death. So we fight through these ambushes all the way down to Deshopan. And once we get to Deshopan, the night before, I made a massive mistake here because one of our vehicles turned over, and these are very narrow dirt roads. And so while the recovery team is getting the vehicle out of the ditch and all this shit, I kept going because I talked about tenacity, right? Because I want to stay on the enemy's ass and I want to keep fighting them, right? Just like General Grant did in the Wilderness Campaign. So we go, so I'm off, I'm gone. But all of a sudden I realized, holy shit, these guys are like 10 kilometers behind me. I split my forces. Bad move. And the general had given us our own AC-130. The gunship. And so the gunship checks on station. I talked to him. I said, listen, partner, I need some help. I left my people back there. Can you provide overcover? He goes, sir, I got him. I'm watching them. No worries. So he brings them in. And this is interesting. You know, this is one of these motivating moments because everybody's dog tired. I'm tired. I could feel it. I knew the Marines are tapped out. And the AC-130, because they've got these collection platforms on it. He's like, hey, Genghis 6, I hear, do you have anybody on top of this mountaintop? I go, no, I got nothing up there. And he's like, I hear somebody talking up there. So I said, it's probably an enemy position, if because we have no friendlies up there. So he requests permission to fire. I said, cleared hot, do it. So he fires a 105 round on this ridge line, and he's like, target destroyed. I said, I don't think so. We need some motivation down there. Give me 5 more rounds. So all of a sudden he goes, boop, 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 he fires them off. And you can see the sparkle come off, and I hear a big hoorah and all this stuff, and it's fantastic. It was good. But then I get a call that the new commander is coming in and he wants to drive into Deshopan with us. So I'm thinking, holy shit, where do I land this freaking helicopter over there? So we went find an LZ, comes in next day, like Caesar. We drive into Deschopin. We drive in there. He takes me aside. He said, you've made history here and all this shit. I'm putting you in for a Silver Star, blah, 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 and all this stuff. I'm so proud of you. He has the PAO come take a picture and all this happy horse shit. And he flies out. So I'm like, great. I'm going to Kalat, mission complete. I got all my boys. We're done. Later on that day, I get a call on the radio. Hey, I got good news for you. I'm like, what's that, sir? He's like, we just got extended. And I'm like, you got to be shitting me. I said, we're tapped out. We're done. He goes, no, this is great for the MEU because, it'll be the longest MEU in combat. I said, listen, I understand it's great for the MEUs. My Marines are tapped out. All of us have lost 25, 30 pounds. My vehicles are done. We're toast. He goes, no, I'll give you the IFAV vehicles. So come on back to the FOB, and then you can go up north and, see if you can flush anything out there. And I'll tell you what, I threw the fucking handset down. And, I'm not a crying type of guy. I don't whine. I don't cry. I don't do any of that shit. And I walked to the edge of this bluff and I just teared up, and my officer comes up to me. He's like, sir, are you okay? I said, Brian, let me tell you something. I said, one day you're going to be general officer. Don't you ever fucking forget this day. And don't you ever treat your Marines like this. You never move the finish line on them, just to be the longest MEU in Afghanistan. That's just horse shit. And, so anyway, so I tell the Marines, I said, hey, Marines, here's the bottom line. This is what's going on. We got to fight all the way back through these damn canyons. And, we're Marines, we'll do our duty, yeah, morale sucked. I mean, my morale sucked. I knew how they're feeling. And so I tell my militia leader, John Mahmoud Khan, who's got about 200 fighters with him. I was like, John Mahmoud, I said, we're going back that way. He goes, no, we're not. He goes, I'm going to Kandahar. That's what you told me. And we were supposed to come out for 5 days. We're on day 11 right now. You're not paying me enough. I'm going to Kandahar. So I said, fine. I said, I'll go back there because that's my duty. And so we come to this T junction and I take a right, go back into the canyons. He takes and all of a sudden I get here on the radio, hey, John Mahmoud Khan is following us. I pull over and we meet, in the middle of the convoy because we walk towards each other. And he goes to me, and I'll tell you what, this is camaraderie, right? This is the type of shit you learn from other people and other forces. He comes up to me, he goes, listen, he goes, you're my friend, you're my brother, and I couldn't leave you. And he gives me a big hug. He goes, I'm with you, So him and his militia come with us, and we go back through, again, ambushes, all this shit happens, and we come to this place called Weti, and you wanted to talk about one of these epic battles, right? Weti is at about 10,000 feet, this mountain, and the local intelligence is telling us that there's about 30 to 40 of these remnants left, right? I've been chasing these bastards for, about 2 weeks now, that they went up on this mountain. So I told the Marines, I said, saddle up. Now it's a goat trail, literally. There's no vehicle trail, there's nothing, right? It's just a literally goat trail. So we dismount, and you gotta love these Marines. We dismount our 50 cals, our mortars, our heavy guns, all that shit. And we start, and John Mahmoud Khan's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm going up that damn mountain, He goes, I'm not going up there. You're not paying me enough for that. I said, listen, you told me you're coming with me. Don't be a wuss. Come with me. So he said, okay, you're going to rent me a donkey. So I had to go to the local village and get a freaking donkey for him. Then I started thinking, shit, this is a brilliant idea. So I rented more donkeys. So we put our, our radios on it, our 50 cals on the donkeys, and we humped up this damn mountain, right? We go all the way to the top. And my officer hated me because I left him down below. And he was, I think to this day, he hates me for, Major Christmas, Brian Christmas, great guy. And he's like, fight me. He's like, sir, I want to go up there with you. I'm your officer. I said, Brian, I need somebody down here in case something happens up there. You're the only guy I trust down here, so you got to stay here. So we get up to the top, and we establish our blocking positions. And I've got this A&A platoon. I also had 2 platoons of Afghan National Army, along with the Afghan militia forces. And they're in a blocking position. And typically, you could know when the fighting would happen. It would always be when the transition point in light would happen, right? Because our nods wouldn't work and all this shit. And right as the sun is setting down, everybody's telling me, sir, let's go back. They're not up here. I said, nah, we're going to spend the night. And sure as shit, as the sun's going down, the enemy opens up on us. So I've got one A&A platoon pinned down, machine gun fire. and we're calling for air support. Now, typically in Afghanistan, what happens is, forget the MAGTF ATO cycle, 24 hours request aircraft in advance, happy horse shit. Okay, the way the joint air works is troops in contact, and all of a sudden every aircraft in vicinity comes to you. That's the way they do it. Well, it just so happened that day, with our luck, there's a sandstorm up in Bagram and a sandstorm in Kandahar, and there's no aircraft flying. So finally, we get an aircraft, and we ask him, what kind of aircraft, what kind of ordnance you got? He's a U-2 flying at 60,000 feet. So I get a little amped up, just like your audio at the beginning of the podcast. It's kind of like that. So I'm amped up. I grabbed the handset from my air officers, and I said, "You're no good to me." He's like, and the guy was awesome. He's a U-2 pilot. He goes, "Genghis 6, calm down." He goes, "I can help you. I can relay for you. Tell me what's going on." So we give him the JTAC brief, and he comes back. He goes, "Listen, I got a B-1 coming in from Diego. Now, I don't know where the B-1 is in relation to Diego Garcia and us." He goes, "He's going supersonic. He'll be at your pause in 5 minutes, and he's preparing the ordnance right now," right? I'm getting chills on my back just talking about this. And so the B-1 prepares it. We give the JTAC brief, and all of a sudden we get a call from Qatar. Now, this is another frickin' country. We're not in the same country, probably about 2,000 miles away, maybe more, from where I'm standing. And some broke dick major refuses clearance to drop the ordnance, right? Because we didn't have a JTAC with that platoon. Right? I've got 2 facts. I've got an air officer with me, all JTAC qualified. And because we don't have a JTAC with them, the liaison officer that we had wasn't JTAC qualified. And I am just fuming. Now, legend has it, okay, that I basically said, "MF, if you don't give permission, I will find you and I will kill you." Okay? And this goes on the squawk box at the Combat Air Operations Center, right? And a general comes on there. He's like, "Genghis 6 is General so-and-so. What's going on?" So I explained to him. I said, "Sir, I'm the senior guy here. I got 3 JTACs standing with me. I can see the ridge line, and I need permission. I got troops in contact. We're going to get people hurt here real short if you don't approve it." He goes, "Wait one." He gives us permission. In the meantime, the B-1 comes back. I mean, remember all that chatter in the beginning of your audio. So all this stuff is happening, like that. And the B-1 comes back and says, "Can't drop. Danger close is like 700 meters, or I think it's 700 or 1,000 meters, whatever the hell it was, right, for a JDAB." And, I'm just sitting there going, holy shit, here comes another problem. And I swear to God, right there and then, I remembered at IOC, one of the instructors smacking me on the back of the helmet and knocking my helmet off and telling me I'm a dumb shit because I didn't know how to use mortars. It's an area weapon. And always remember the frag pattern. Those are the words I still remember standing on the mountain in Wuti. And I asked the pilot, I said, "What's the frag pattern of this ordnance?" He said, "Go straight up." I asked the liaison officer down there, "What's the elevation difference between you and the machine gun?" He said, "About 200 meters, right?" So 200 meters frag pattern goes straight up, and they're 400 meter separation. We're right on the edge of it, So I explained to him, I say, "This is what I'm doing. We're going to drop this ordnance on my count, get everybody down, and may God be with you." And that's probably one of the strongest decisions I've made in combat because, the whole damn platoon could have been wiped out. But, I'm trying to save them. And it's that moment in time when that transmission is happening that you got to make a decision. And, the bomb came on target, destroyed the enemy position. Just give me a minute. Because serious shit, these are human lives we're talking about, right? These are your kids.
Yeah, of course.
And the B-1 goes out, he turns around, he comes back. He's got all his ISR, looking down and all that stuff. And on the other side of the ridgeline, he sees the enemy position. The guys who've been chasing for about 2 weeks now. And, so I've got clearance. So I give him cleared hot, take him out, drop more ordnance on him. And then we find out the next day, we killed like 30 of them, some camels, donkeys, and all that shit. And the guys that we were chasing. And mission complete. We came down off the mountain, and then we go up to make it back to Fob Ripley, and so I come to Fob Ripley, I go to a staff meeting, and everybody's friggin' ecstatic, right? Because we've kicked some serious ass. I mean, we've just crushed people, right? And we've earned this name, Death Walkers, and I don't know what the hell's going on right now, right? So I come back, and so I'm sitting in a staff meeting, and they announced that, hey, everybody in the MEU that was at Fob Ripley is going to get the combat action ribbon. I'm sitting there looking at this. I had just had, 40 some Marines wounded and shit. And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, so I kept quiet. And after the staff meeting, I went to Mackenzie, and I was like, what are you doing? I said, the Fob was never under any threat. I said, we were fighting 100 kilometers away. How can you, he said, it's my call. I said, I get it. I said, I get it's your call, but let me tell you something. It's also my call. When we get home, I'm going to bring it up. Okay, because the Marines at this Fob were never under fire. You have to return fire and receive fire and return fire. The rules are very clear. Nonetheless, so he passed he passed the word that if you spent the night on the Fob, you get the combat action ribbon. Mike, I shit you not. There are helicopters coming full of people from Kandahar, offloading on the ramp. Marines were spending the night on the frickin' ramp, flying back to Kandahar Air Base the next day, and they got their name on the roster for the combat action ribbon. It was absolutely disgusting, right? And it still bugs the shit out of me to this day. But that was reality. So then I get an order, hey, we got extended again. Okay, the second extension comes in. Now we got to go up north of Tarankot, a place called Miamdo, Charchanay area, right? And I'm like, this shit doesn't end, man. These guys are milking everything. And so, get the boys ready. We get ready. We go up to Charchanay. We have to do a river crossing and all this shit. And Taliban attacks our jingle trucks, right? It's because they sent these trucks up there, the MEU did, without any security. So Taliban burns them. And so we go up there, and we really didn't get much activity, right? We, minor firefights and all that shit. We found a lot of ordnance and all that. And, that was about it, And then we turned around, we came back, but the MEU wanted to do night drops with C-130s, so they could have this, again, the accolade that was the first MEU to do night airdrops of supplies. We did that. But the thing that really pissed me off, it was 4th of July, and I told my OPSO that make sure the Marines get some good hot chow on 4th of July, Independence Day. And the OPSO had coordinated with the MSSG on 3 July. He's checking with the MEU, and guess what? The MEU canceled the request. I get on the hook to talk to the MEU commander, to Mackenzie. I'm like, why did the request get canceled? He said, because you didn't go through the MEU. And I'm like, you got to be shitting me. Why do I have to go through the MEU? Why can't I crosstalk? He said, well, because we're not going to have the aircraft available then. Why not? Well, they're going to be in a maintenance cycle on 4th of July, right? He's just pulling shit out of his ass. I said, Roger that, fuck you, and I just threw the thing down. And the Marines didn't anything. Back at the Fob, they got steak, right? And guess what happens on the 4th of July? They sent 246s with, I think it was like a dozen cases of 1 liter bottles of water. Okay, I've got like 800 Marines. What am I supposed to do with 24 cases of 1 liter bottle? 20, you can do the math. You can't do anything. What am I supposed to give them? 1 bottle cap, a sip of each? It was just horse shit. And then they bring in James Webb, the dog and pony, and good guy. James Webb, good guy. He's a warrior, right? I got a lot of respect.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Sure.
So he comes, because he wants to write an article on us, and he sits there, spends a day, goes off with the sergeant major. They write their articles and all that stuff, right? And it was good. Then they sent, then on the way back, they sent Geraldo. So we were on Geraldo. I can send you the clip to that, right? And Geraldo took a fascination to me, right? I mean, it's a story that Americans want to hear. Immigrant, Pakistani American, the Afghans are loyal to me. We're kicking ass. At that time, we're the only unit engaged in combat in Afghanistan and all that stuff. So we kind of took the limelight away from the MEU, which pissed them off too, which I really didn't care about and all that shit. But anyway, so when we got done, we go down to Kandahar, and here comes the kicker, right? He wants me to fly with them down to Kandahar. And I was like, I'm not flying. I'm going with my Marines. So I drove down with my Marines. Took us a good day. But as we get into Kandahar City, the vehicle in front of me, the freaking tire came off the hub. We were that broke. I mean, the vehicle's just demolished, right? So I see this tire. It was actually going the other way. It goes this way, and it hits a rickshaw, right? Because it comes off, hits a rickshaw, and all of a sudden we got a scene there, right? So the crowd gathers, and this is how screwed up we are, right? They launch helicopters from the base, the QRF, and all this happy horseshit just because a crowd gathered at a freaking accident. I pull out $200. I give it to the rickshaw driver. I said, go away. Well, you're just making drama here. And he's happier than hell, right? He just paid $200. And that the problem solved. We spent more on the helicopters and the fuel, right? By launching them and they're circling and all this happy horseshit. We get on the base, and I didn't realize, because we were out of touch. We had gotten no news, and, it's amazing. The base was lined up from the gate. There's people lined up receiving us because we were like the lost battalion returning, right? And, Marines start showering. And, again, my ex, I love Brian Christmas. He's like, sir, get in the shower. I said, Brian, I'm going to be the last one showering. Get your ass in there, And I was the last guy showered. I hadn't showered in over 100 days. I wore the same set of utilities, all that crap. And that night, I'd forgotten, or by the time I got done, the chow hall had closed. And they'd heard, and they reopened it, and they fed us. A steak, and I saw Alaskan. First time in my life I've seen Alaskan king crab legs, those big long legs. All that. It was good, right? So then what happened was, now the problems start, and I'll do a separate thing on the investigations. I don't want to bring that in there into this right now. Then we're called up to go up to Kabul to meet the ambassador and go up to Bagram, right? So we fly up there to go see the ambassador to brief them on our operations, and they're having a media day, and they want me to go sit in front of the media, right? And I'm the wrong guy to talk to the media, as your viewers can probably tell. You don't want me in front of the media. So I tell Mackenzie, I said, I ain't doing it. He's like, no, somebody hands us talk. I said, I'm not doing it. I said, you want to do it? You do it. I went off to some chow hall, get some coffee with my sergeant major. And, and all of a sudden it's like starting to factor in, like this is a big deal. President Bush talked about us, about the 1-6 and all this stuff. And so it became this tussle of, who's getting the accolades, right? And at that point, quite frankly, I didn't care. My Marines were back home safe, and I'm going to take them home. I didn't give a shit what happened, right? And so then we go up to, then we're supposed to go back to Bagram. We're at Kabul airport, and I knew the airport shuts down at night because there's 2 mountains there, right? So it just shuts down. And it's getting dark, and our C-130 hasn't come in. So I asked the mule, where's our C-130 at? They said, well, it's going to be here at this time. It's after dark. I said, the airport's going to shut down. So we need to figure out how to get to Bagram. So they said, we're going to drive. I said, I'm not driving anywhere. I'll sleep right here. And I actually turned in my pistol, too. I was just pissed off. And so the general hears that we're stuck down in Kabul airport. He launches a Chinook. So you can hear from Kabul, you can kind of see Bagram in a distance, about 40 kilometers away. And so we see this Chinook barreling down at us, lands, picks us up, goes back to Bagram, and lands, and we get out, and Mackenzie goes apeshit. He goes, you tell that MF I'm a 06, and he should have landed at the VIP spot. Legend has it that I kind of just turned around and said, will you shut the F up? And I walked off. And I didn't go to the quarters. These guys are sleeping in VIP quarters. I went and found a tent, those halfback tents, and I grabbed a cot. Yeah, and I grabbed a cot and I fell asleep. Next morning I wake up and there's a bunch of these Marines and soldiers standing looking down at me. And I wake up, I'm like, good morning, gents. They go, sir, are you Colonel Khan? I go, I am. Because people are hearing about this stuff, right? And so I said, hey, anybody got any coffee around here or something? A couple of them go running off coffee. I said, where's the head at? I go clean up. I come back, they got coffee, and they're like, sir, can you tell us what happened? So I quickly give them a dump on it, and all this stuff. And I go to the jock, and at the gate, they stop me. And some sentry goes, sir, where's your weapon at? I said, I don't have one. you know. She's like, sir, the base order says you have to have personal, all times. And I just looked at this kid and I said, do you have any idea where I came from, where I've been? You know, you're a Bagram. They got Subways, they got massage parlors, they got PXs, they got ice cream. Are you kidding me? This is not combat. And anyway, my sergeant major jumped in. He goes, sir, I got it. Go ahead. So we went there, and then the CG was going to come down the next day to have breakfast with the Marines down in Kandahar. So he flies down the next day, and here's the kicker. He flies down the next day, and he gives a kick-ass speech, and that's when he said, you Americans, you went to places where no Americans have been anywhere before. You kicked the enemy in the ass, on all this speech that he gave. And it was a fantastic speech, really motivating. Then afterwards, we go to breakfast with the Marines, and he's sitting with the squad of Marines. I'm sitting on the side table with the deputy CG, and the deputy CG is telling me, he's like, Genghis, you guys did so well. He goes, you can pick any job you want in the Marine Corps, and I'll make sure you get it. Do you want to be the aide to General Pace, the chairman of Joint Chiefs? I said, no, sir, I don't want to be the aide. So while they're saying this, they go attention to orders. So, everybody pops up, and they read a Bronze Star citation for the MU commander, and they pin a Bronze Star on him. I got the picture. They pin a Bronze Star on him. And I'm just standing there going, holy shit. My Marines have suffered. We have suffered, and I'm talking suffered like modern times, like Vietnam type suffering, right? And this guy gets the first combat award. I couldn't believe it. And so we sit back down. So the deputy CG goes, Genghis, what do you want to do? I said, sir, I'm retiring. And he spilled his coffee. He's like, what? I said, I'm going to retire. He goes, why? I said, for shit like that. I said, my Marines haven't been recognized, and we're giving away Bronze Stars to people who haven't done anything. And he goes, yeah, I get it, and that was it. And then we flew back. We came to Kuwait, Camp Victory, backloaded from Kuwait. And here's another kicker, right? This is the type of screwed up leadership we have. We were put in Camp Victory, which is basically a desert camp, right? Just sand in the tents, cots, ACs barely worked, but they had a fairly decent chow hall. So I told the Marines, I said, let me tell you something. I said, we'll get up at 4 a.m. in the morning. I'll get you up. We'll PT. And but the only thing I require of you after that is you got to eat your 3 meals a day, because I want to put weight back on them. I told staff and senior officers, you walk around during chow with trays of ice cream and shove ice cream down their throats, because we got to put weight back on them because we're going home. And I get a call. I got to go down to RF John for a staff meeting. So I had to go down to RF John. Now, RF John, I don't know if you're familiar with it, is a modern base. It's been there since when you were in Desert Storm. That's when they built RF John, right? So the MU's down there, and they're at the pool. So I go down to the pool, and these people are sitting around the pool, and my Marines are suffering up there, the guys who actually fought. And legend has it that I made a statement like, if I had a grenade, I would frag every one of you. And I turned around and I walked off. And, and the MU commander, it's like, we don't have enough room for everybody. So I said, then why didn't you guys go up to RF John and send at least 1 or 2 of my companies down here so those Marines could recover and recoup? This is the shitty type of leadership. And these are the guys that become 4-star generals. You got to be shitting me. We backload and we go off. And when we backload, then all of a sudden, this, because they're always looking for glory. They had all this media going around. And this stupid woman from Australia does a documentary on the MU. And in that documentary, they show one officer pushing a Marine. And this is, again, what she doesn't say is these guys have been extended the second time. Morale is down. It sucks. So this officer is trying to do the right thing. He goes, do you understand me? Do you understand me? And he shoves a Marine like a football coach would, grab the helmet. And they don't know how to handle it, the Marine Corps. And I get called in and said, like, did you see this? I said, I haven't seen it. So I said, I'll talk to him. I'm thinking in my mind, not a big deal. I'll just counsel him. They said, no, this is a big deal. We got to do a command investigation. So I said, okay, you want to do a command investigation? You do it. So the MU did the command investigation, all this bullshit. Every Marine in that platoon formation, they're going on patrol, said it was not assault, every one of them. I get called in again, you got to relieve them. I said, I'm not relieving anybody. You have the same rights that I do. You relieve them. And because he said the MEF commander as demanded that he be relieved. So we relieved this poor guy, one of the best shit-hot company commanders, artillery battery. He gets relieved, does a sea bag drag off the ship, goes home. And while all this is going on, right? It just blew my mind that this shit was happening. That's the last thing you would expect, right? And what the MEU failed to tell the MEF commander was the artillery battery the entire time was working for the MEU. The entire time. They were guarding his fob. They were never with me. So what he did was he spun this lie saying, hey, the reason this happened, hands-on stuff, is because Khan's command climate. But he was never with me. It wasn't my command climate. It was your command climate, right? And talking to the artillery Marines, nobody went to their positions on the perimeter the entire time. Nobody checked up on them, right? Except for the artillery staff did, but nobody from the MEU. So all this shit went on, right? So now the deflection game's happening because Marines are talking, right? So then I get called in, hey, we want to do another command climate inspection, on the battalion's command climate. I said, I'll tell you right now, it sucks. It sucks, right? We just came out of combat and we're in recovery mode. You don't need to do investigation. I'll tell you, it sucks. So they do investigation, and basically out of 120 staff NCOs, they interviewed 55. They interviewed no Marines. They did no follow-up interviews. And, it was a beautifully done thing. When I saw the investigation, I was like, man, this guy is a masterpiece. I saw it and I was like, you know what? Screw this. I retired. I'm not going to stick around for this horse shit. And then Amos, who's such a weasel, hog tamer, really, that man he's not a man. I think he's probably got a pronoun. So Amos is the MEF CG, right? Because I thought the MEF CG was Osman. I've got the fit. Osman loved me, the previous MEF CG, but I didn't realize the MEF CGs had changed, right? I was so out of touch. So Amos is out to screw me now, right? And this is how pathetic, indecent these people are. Rather than just say, okay, you can retire, they charge me with assault and conduct unbecoming an officer. The assault was because I grabbed two people in combat, come here. So that was assault, and the JAG guys, and we talked about this yesterday, General Grace smacked me on the back, that's assault too then, right? And so the JAG basically said, hey, this ain't gonna fly. The next one was, I used the F word. Yeah, I did. Damn right I did. And I right in front of the lawyers, and they all knew me. I said, you fucking A, I did, But the FCGs used them, I've heard them, and certainly the MUCOs used them, so they should be charged also if this is the new threshold that we're doing. So they dropped the whole damn thing. So now they got nothing on me, right? Then they start to keep me silent, so I don't go to the media or anything. They start another investigation. This is like the third or the fourth investigation on me, right? And that's when I said, you know what, enough of this shit. So I get this gentleman by the name of Charlie Gittins. You remember the EA-6B that hit that gondola in Italy?
Yeah, I know who Charlie Gittins is. Yeah.
Yeah. So Charlie Gittins, I call him up and he's like, Colonel, I've been hearing some rumors about you. Tell me your side of the story. And I just did, basically this stuff. He said, you want to go on 60 Minutes? I said, absolutely. Yes, sir. So he goes, okay, I'll call you right back. So he calls the Commandant's SJA, Hagee, who's another weasel, in my opinion. And I'll say it to their face. I'm saying it publicly. I got no issue with it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why, if you're interested in that, because 2-1 had that incident, right? So they covered up 2-1's incident, right? That battalion commander becomes a lieutenant general, and they throw me to the dogs. When I had, a successful combat tour, no Marines under my watch, under my direct command, no Marines got killed. We took some wounded, and we're probably the most successful battalion in Afghanistan at the time. Nonetheless, so they call Hagee's SJ, and basically, they say, hey, we're going on 60 Minutes. When do you guys want to do this? And within 8 hours, I was retired. And I left. I turned around and basically, and this is how luck goes, right? And I got a call from General DeLong. Remember General DeLong? We talked about him at the beginning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Hey, F-stick, well, what are you doing?" I'm hearing rumors about you. So I told him. He said, okay, don't worry about it. Just come work for me. So I said, sir, I'm not working for you. You already fired me, and why would I want to work for you again? So he goes, no, I'm retired, and I'm working for this company, And we hitched up, and it was great working for him. Good man, I tell you what. And there's some solid, Vietnam-era Marines. Vietnam-era Marines are good Marines. And I think what happened was Goldwater-Nichols Act, when I kind of touched on this, when people started reading too many books. And, the guys like Mattis, I have a library of 3,000 books, So the next guy is sitting there thinking, shit, he's got 3,000. I'll get 3,500 books, right? So everybody became like a bookworm, and we weren't out there training our Marines in the field. We weren't out there in the physical fitness training and all that stuff. And then you look at guys like Mackenzie, and, when the Afghans are calling them Chagurai, a plump lamb, or the Pakistanis are asking me, is this guy really a Marine? Because Marines are supposed to be fit. And you have to deal with that shit. And the Marines see that too. And I'll tell you what, he wouldn't have lasted 3 days in 1-6. He wasn't physically or mentally tough enough to last. And Amos wouldn't have lasted 3 days in 1-6. And neither Amos or Mackenzie could have had the Afghans follow them like we did, right? They just didn't have the skills. And yet they whatever propaganda, whatever, Machiavellian charlatan trick that they played, so be it, So I left the Marine Corps holding my head up high, and I got no regrets. I've got, the words of my Marines means everything to me, and bringing them back home to their families meant everything to me. The rest of the stuff, I honest to God, I don't give a shit. And I'll tell you this much, going back to leadership, a commander has to have that attitude. You're either willing to die for your Marines, or you're willing to give up your career for your Marines. And if you're not willing to do either of those two, you should not be a commander. And if you go back in history, and those people that I named, U.S. Grant, that I talked about, Brigadier General Roosevelt, assault wave, Normandy, General Cota, second assault wave, Normandy, Terry Allen doing night attacks with his troops. Those are the type of leaders we want, and we will never be able to fix our military until and unless we get leaders like that back in the saddle. And the only way you're going to get them back in the saddle is stop this horse shit about joint staff being required, the joint staff designation being required to get promoted in the military. It's undermining us. It's creating the consummate staff officers that are out of shape, they're immoral, they're careerists, they're charlatans. And I can go on for the rest of the day if you want and come up with more adjectives to describe these people, but I won't waste your time. Do you have any questions about anything I just talked about? And I've talked for a while.
Well, I got to tell you, I thought you saw me taking. I got notes. I took a bunch of notes, and I got some things to say and all that. So, no questions. One request. We've gone on for a good period of time, so I think we're going to conclude the episode here. I'd like you to come back for another episode because I have some pointed questions.
Sure.
On everything you just said. In other words, your Marines, I mean, I heard so much about you before I ever met you, Asad. So they were obviously tactically competent. And I want to hear more about literally the training that you ran them through. You and your officers and staff NCOs and NCOs ran them through. The audience wants to hear, I want to hear, how did you imbue this mentally tough warrior spirit in your guys? Because, you said in part one, tenacity in combat. Combat warrior, combat leader, doesn't matter. You need to be tenacious. I think people want to know, how did you do that? And how did you sustain that even when casualties were happening? I want to hear about physical training. I don't believe many Marines would have been able to keep up with your battalion because you know better than me. There were many battalions that trained as hard as you, and there were also many battalions that they didn't train, and so they arrived in theater in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I'm hearing this from well-placed eyewitnesses that some of these battalions arrived already in a sorry state of affairs. Weapons were not good, vehicles were okay, blah, 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 physical fitness, really not stressed, and they suffered a lot of heat casualties, a lot of illness, inability to stick with the rigors of that heat and all of that. Yeah. And they also suffered KIAs and wounded in actions that were probably avoidable. So I'd like you to come back, and I'd like to make a couple of statements here, and I'm going to let you talk at the end. And this is me summarizing it really for the audience. There's gold in what you just said. And I want to throw some things out here. Because if you're like me, if I ask you, Asad, what'd you just say for the last hour and 20, 30 minutes? You probably don't remember. You know what I mean? You're just spewing, and it was all great. But I want to cover some things here. The first is I want to get your thoughts on this. When you're talking about we shot over 1,556 rounds, I'm talking to the young guys out there right now. Asad Khan battalion did not rate 1,556 rounds. He got it. Now here's something that I learned, Asad, and I don't know if it's still relevant. I'm throwing this out to the current Marines and future Marines and soldiers. I actually had been taught that if you want more ammo, have your S4 ask the regimental and division S4 at the end of each quarter, yes, hey, do you have any excess ammo that other units are allocated, but they haven't and are not going to shoot? And the answer was yes. We've got 57,762 rounds. We've got 280 60 mortar rounds. You know where I'm going with this. I did that at the end of every quarter. My S4 did it. Great guy. Right. And at the end of the fiscal year, and so let me tell you where it really paid off. When we were going to Desert Storm, this will sicken you. Everybody was, all right, we're going. We're going. Everybody's going. The whole Marine Corps is deploying. Everybody's worried about getting their desert camis on, getting issued desert camis, which was a novelty in those days. And we're going to take max leave and all of that. So I had weapons 1A. So I had, I knew we were going to get tows and dragons, I was going to get tows allocated to me. And so the bottom line is this. We asked for any ammo. And so many battalions in the 2nd Marine Division would rather go on max leave than finish their training, that I was able to get about 80 tow missiles. 80. Oh. Tow missiles, a similar amount of Dragon rounds. Right. I think we got several hundred mortar rounds. And so what I did, not a rocket scientist by any means, I put everybody on max leave for 30 days except those guys. And I kept them back, I want to say, for like another week to do these live fire shoots. And I stayed with them, first sergeant and all that. And then they went on max leave and still got the 30 days. They came back a week later and all that. So the tip that I'm showing these people that I don't know is still relevant is don't just say this is what you got for ammo. This is what you got for ranges. Inquire. Treat your staff guys right, and they'll bend over backwards. And that's the next tip. And I'll let you talk about all this later on. A lot of infantry officers and NCOs and staff NCOs, we're proud of ourselves, but we can get MOS elitist. Like, you're not a grunt, you're just an S4 puke. You're a logistician, you're the adjutant, F you, you're a REMF. Don't do that. I always thought these are Marines. Many of them didn't ask to be logisticians or adjutants or S1 clerks. Take them out to live fire ranges with you. Let them shoot. Let them fast rope. Let them drive the boats. Let them do shit with you. And then when you screw up, and I did, my gunny said, sir, you're not going to believe this. We got the company. We're getting ready to go to a live fire shoot. Sir, I blew this one, sir. What the matter? I didn't request the ammo. What do you mean? You didn't request the ammo. We're getting ready to go. We got ranges locked down, and the ASP knows nothing about it. My S4 doesn't know about it. The regimental S4, we don't. And because we had treated him right, and he was the right guy and had great relationships, he was able to ride out to the ASP, and the ASP hooked us up.
Right.
Because he had a good rep and all that. So the lesson is, treat your support guys with respect. They are Marines, and include them. That kid's sitting there banging out, turning wrenches and all that. You bring him on the range and let him shoot a machine gun or a 203 or lob a couple mortar rounds down. He'll never forget you for that. He'll love you. And when you need him, he's going to show up. They're going to show up hard. And then the last tip I wanted to pass on, and I wonder if it's this day, you can do a lot in the Marine Corps in peacetime and get away with it. But God help you as a commander. God help you if your Marines miss dental appointments. You'll get relieved. You know what I mean? Dental appointments often become the tip of the spear. And people, hey, sir, we got 13 people that need to come out of the field during this 3 days. Why? Dental appointments. So I went with my first sergeant to the dental clinic, talked to their master chief and said, how about this? Can you schedule all of my guys only on Fridays? And I guarantee you, every one of them will be there. And he said, sure. So we established a policy. No one ever left the field unless it was a bona fide emergency. So I passed that on because you know what I'm talking about, Asad. I'm sure you did similar things. People get in there and they don't realize as a commander, you can actually do things like this if you have some initiative and creativity. There's no reason for Marines to leave the field. None whatsoever. My chaplain came to me when I was a company commander. I heard that he was going to pull Marines out of the field to do religious things and all of that. And I'm like, come on over here, chaplain. That ain't happening with my company. You have a job, and I respect it. Let me tell you what my job is. So you are not going to pull. And he said, well, okay. And so he didn't. So he started doing it on Monday mornings or Friday afternoons. I got it. My kids want to go there and do the good stuff. They're not missing training to save their life. They're just not. So I want to talk about a little bit more here. You may not know this, Asad. Maybe you do, but I'm passing on because this podcast is all about passing on history. And people may not know this, that famous O'Grady mission where Marines flew in and rescued a downed pilot who was running for his life for a couple days. So I'm telling this, you know this, I'm telling this to the audience that doesn't know. This was part of the MUSOC program, and they had a Sparrowhawk mission, which was a trap mission, and they had to take grunts, and they specialize in, okay, we got 2 helos full of Marines, and they're trained to go in and rescue downed pilots or somebody else. And they rehearse it, they get evaluated on it. Every Marine is counted for. They know how many seats are on there, how many available seats. They have a bump plan. If one helo goes down, who goes and all that. Here's what happened. The O'Grady mission goes, okay, we're going to go get this guy. We see him. He's going to go. And the trap gets activated. So let's just say we have 22 Marines ready to go. They are part of the established trap platoon. Marines get bumped off of the helos because you know who decides they want to go?
Yeah.
The MU commander, the MU XO, the MU sergeant major, and a whole host of other people who have no tactical value on that mission. So we just spent a year training these Marines to go in and do a dark, dangerous mission. We're going to trust this lieutenant to go with his Marines, like you trusted your lieutenants and staff NCOs. And at the last minute, they couldn't resist the opportunity to get on the mission. What the hell does a MU commander have business going on a trap mission, getting shot down, getting killed, and who's running the show back there? I guess, I don't know. So my point is this. You got to study history, young fellows out there, but there's a lot of unrecorded history that you need to learn from too, and you can if you actually seek out people who were there or who have inside knowledge of what really happened. It was friggin' scandalous. I want to say 6 or 8 Marines of that trap platoon were bumped off of the mission. And fortunately, it went well. O'Grady, they landed helos. O'Grady ran out to them and all that. They didn't have to fight and all that. But it goes right to what Mackenzie did with you, all these VIPs and all of that. And so I want to go there as well. You know, I was on your podcast and you mentioned, you know, up front my awards and combat action ribbons, and I told everybody, hey, I'm humble, I appreciate it and all that. We all know people that don't rate it. And I have to take the opportunity. So you were an eyewitness to a whole shitload of Marines and hangers-on, some of whom, you know, good Marines and all that, but they just got awarded a combat action ribbon for no combat whatsoever.
None.
And again, the lesson is just because you see somebody wearing something doesn't mean they rate it in the true, literal sense of the award. So the Bronze Star for the MU Commander, did it have a V on it?
I don't think so. I don't. But you know, the point is, if I was the MU commander and if I really cared about leading by example and perceptions, I would have just told the general, hey, just give it to me and I'll get it entered into my record. We don't need to have a ceremony.
We're agreeing, I think, on the same thing. So again, we're talking to the youngsters out there. If you get caught in that position, let's just say Mackenzie, for once, it wasn't his fault and he was ordered, we're giving you this award, and you're getting it now, today. He should have insisted, look, I thank you. I appreciate the recognition. I don't think it's a good look for me to get an award before these combat warriors get those. So can you do it in private, or can you please ask the general, can he indulge me and wait till these young fighters get theirs, you know?
Right.
And of course, I don't think he's the guy that has the merit to do that, the backbone to do that. And quite frankly, I'm not sure he has the character to do that. I don't think that probably entered his mind. And I realize that I'm bashing him a little bit. Your lesson, if they listen to anything you said, the lesson about the JTAC and not dropping the ordnance and some guy 2,000 meters away, 2,000 miles away and all of that, it's a tactical law, young warriors. If you're in the rear, and the rear could be 100 meters back, do not ever argue with the guy on the front line fighting at bayonet length or at, pistol range length. Do not argue. Get the guy what he needs. And if so, you'll be able to chew his ass later for not following proper protocol. Get him the fire support and all of that. And so the thing that I use for that is, you ever seen that famous movie Zulu Dawn, where the British got circled and they got their ass kicked and annihilated, and there was a quartermaster there, and frontline guy, they're getting overrun by guys with spears and stuff, and they're going back and to like a sergeant major, I need ammo, and he goes, not without the proper requisitions. I mean, they're getting overrun, so they actually just started stealing the ammo. And so you guys that are in support MOSs, don't be the Zulu supply guy. Get people what they need when they need it. And if they didn't fill out the proper forms or the proper request or the proper 9-line format and all that, that's a training issue later on. The next thing I want to talk about is Asad. I looked it up early, if you saw me searching on my iPhone. Rommel, you were channeling Rommel, and Rommel, we'll talk about this next time. Rommel said that the best thing you can do to look out for the welfare of your troops, the best form of welfare for the troops, is first-class training, for this saves unnecessary casualties. And I want to read some other things. I'm going to let you talk. Key aspects of this principle, and this is coming from Rommel. Rommel believed that training was a form of welfare for soldiers, reducing the human cost of war by preparing them effectively for combat. By ensuring troops receive superior training, Rommel aimed to prevent unnecessary deaths and injuries on the battlefield. So did Asad Khan. He understood that well-trained soldiers would perform better under pressure, leading to more successful outcomes and fewer avoidable casualties. You're going to take casualties, as you know well, friend, even better than I do, but there are also avoidable casualties, and shame on you as a leader if you let them fall into that trap. And so that is it on Rommel. I wanted to ask you, though, Asad, and oh, by the way, the shower thing. You know, taking the shower last. I had to laugh at that. We're very much alike in that example. I did not take a shower in Desert Storm out in the desert for 104 days. And when we came back, same thing. First sergeant said, sir, you know, there's actually a staff NCO and officer's shower up there, and the troops are getting theirs. I'm like, I'm not doing it, you know, because I knew you'd say that. So after about 4 days, he said, sir, your turn. Every single Marine has taken a shower. And I said, have you taken yours? He said, I'm going right now. I'm like, okay. And Marines saw that, and they knew that they're running around already clean. The captain's running around still in his oil-stained camis and stuff like that. But I wanted to ask you this, Asad. And I think I know the answer to this. And there's learning in this as well. I know what the answer is, but you got to tell these young guys. Do you think your energy and initiative and boldness and desire to engage and kill the enemy, do you think that intimidated, if not scared, other Marine Corps leaders? Because they knew he's setting a standard, and he's the guy that we really want to be when we grow up, except I'm already senior to him. He's setting a standard, and by default, we're going to look bad, because not only are we not doing that, we don't want to do that. We don't want to chase. We just want to get in and out of here with minimal casualties. Now, I realize there are other aggressive guys out there, but you know better than me, there are other guys out there who say, just let me get through this. I don't care if we get engaged at all. I don't care if we kill anybody. I just want to get through this, because I just want to be a colonel. I want to be an 06 and all of that. So with that, my friend, I'll turn it over. If you would answer that question first, and then anything else that I just said, any kind of a wrap up on anything you said, knowing that we're going to come back for part 3 and talk about more detail about some specific topics.
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been the type of person that, I've got very high standards for myself. I'm still disciplined to this day. I think we talked about it offline. I still get up early in the morning. I go for a run, hit the gym and all that stuff. And I go test myself up in the mountains in the Himalayas and the Karakoram and whatnot. So I'm always going up the next rung of the ladder, right? And it was not only expecting high standards for myself and improving on myself, and also my Marines, but also my seniors. If you didn't meet the standard as my senior, one way or the other, I would let you know that you weren't meeting the standard. And I think the point that you're making is, I was always in the Marine Corps viewed as the oddball out because I was so damn intense. And I think, and I'll tell you what, I have no regrets. That intensity, if it kept my Marines alive and brought them home, so be it. And if that sacrificed my career for doing it, so be it. I have zero regrets, none whatsoever. It's a small sacrifice that I paid. It was not even a sacrifice. I did my duty, man. So I think it's very, very important. You talked about the ammunition. You don't need a lot of ammunition. We just were able to shoot 1 million rounds, and I kept ordering it. Now, things have changed. Back then, we had Excel spreadsheets, and by the time they brought all the spreadsheets together and tallied them up, it would be weeks and months out. Right now, everything's computerized, so things are a little bit different. But like you said, you can always get more ammunition. I can tell you a quick story. When General T.S. Jones came to visit us in AP Hill, I mooched some AT-4 rounds from him. They were tough to get. And he asked me, hey, Genghis, do you need anything? Every general is going to ask you, hey, what can I do for you? And you got to call him out on it. Yeah, I need some AT-4 rounds, right? And he arranged it. He made it happen. I don't know where we use a T&E command in Quantico. Maybe you sent him down from Quantico. I don't know what the hell happened. But we got him. And the other thing is, as a leader, never miss an opportunity to have your Marines recognized. When the general comes to visit you, he wants to get a sense of what's going out there. He doesn't want to spend time yapping with you. Take him around, introduce the Marines, and have some Navy Achievement Medals in your pocket when the general's coming, and tell the general, hey, I think you need to award him Navy Achievement Medal. Here you go, sir. You give him the medal, and the general, you just put him on the spot. He'll pin it on there, and then you can always do the paperwork afterwards, right? But the morale goes to the roof. Never miss an opportunity to recognize a Marine. Never, ever, So I think these things are important in building morale. But the key thing, I think, in leadership is trust. There's got to be intrinsic trust amongst you and your Marines. They have to trust you with their lives. And if they do that, they're willing to fight for you. And the only way you can build that trust is by showing them through example that I'm there with you. And I hate to use this word, they're like your children, because they're not children, they're adults, right? But I always treated every Marine like my own. And I think they knew that. And they had this special trust and bond with me that, one, they were going to get a fair shake. And they knew what my standards were. I wasn't, I was going to dilute my standards for anybody, not even myself. And we all lived by that code. And I think that's so damn important. Now, you talked about the combat action ribbon, right? And real quick, and I've got the citations and all that. I can pull that out. There are 28 incidents that they wrote up on, 28, right? 23 of them involved the BLT. It had nothing to do with the MU command element. The remaining 5 there were 2 rockets that landed outside the perimeter of the FOB. Okay, they didn't even come inside the FOB. Then there's a MU FOB OP that observed 2 armed men outside the perimeter, and they exchanged fire with them. We don't know who shot first or whatever, right? So they listed that as a second example. Well, come to find out, that was John Mahmoud Khan's outer perimeter militia, right? And the MU failed to coordinate with them, and there was a friendly firefight. They wrote it up. To me, that's unethical. There are 2 more rockets that landed outside. One detonated, and the other wasn't fused properly, didn't detonate outside the FOB perimeter, right? So everybody doesn't rate a car for that. And there's a KC-130 that was shot at 2.5 miles out on final approach. Yeah, and now we don't know if it's a hostile environment. They claim it was a hostile environment. We don't know if it's celebrity fire, if there's a newborn baby, or if somebody's getting married that day, right? The flight crew may rate 8 air medals or something, but the entire FOB doesn't rate a combat action ribbon for that. And the last one was there's a patrol 10 kilometers away. They got into a firefight. They deserve the combat action ribbon, but not the entire MU. So this is situational ethics. And when Marines see you doing situational ethics, they lose confidence in you. And the bridge here is that we really need to think through, and maybe next time we can talk about it, is in 2004, these incidents happened. And what happened in 2021, right? And what happened in between? So it's the same leadership. There's a cause and effect for it, right? And what happened prior to that, right? And these are all the symptoms that were involved in that command. And that command wasn't out there looking for the welfare of the Marines. I guarantee that. If they were, then the Marines would be at Camp Arifjan. They wouldn't be sitting in Camp Victory sweating away. So I think these are important, and these are important leadership lessons. And I just wanted to frame it all around an actual battalion of what the battalion went through. I've got lessons learned also that we can talk about later on. What were the real lessons that we learned? But the Marines did fantastic. And I'll tell you what, we can talk about, command climate and all this happy horse shit. And every command climate sucks. You come out of combat. When you came out of Desert Storm 104 days, Marines were tapped out, right? But we promoted over 540 Marines. 30 of them were meritoriously promoted in that battalion. 7 Marines received combat promotions, one of them which was a staff NCO promotion. I recognized over 150 deserving Marines with medals, 150. Awarded over 500 good conduct medals. I didn't have discipline problems, right? We gave over 100 combat awards to include Navy Achievement Medals from combat with the V all the way up to a Navy Cross, that Sergeant Vigiani received. So the command climate was as good as any other infantry battalion. But if you want to start digging, and you know this as a drill instructor, I can go into any unit. I can go into any unit in the Marine Corps, and if I dig deep enough, I will find something. You know this.
Absolutely. Yes.
And, and the command climate is influenced by many factors, right? Staff and NCO officer leadership, the operational tempo, 3 weeks to form as a BLT. That adds pressure to everybody. Writing SOPs, and all that stuff, right? And then all the rumors that start out. And I'll give you an example of a rumor. The MU adjutant, Captain Marissa Serrano, she claimed in this command climate investigation, and I got it right here. I mean, if anybody's interested, I've got the letters, and they're going to be published in my book right here. It's an investigation. In that investigation, she claims in a statement, a sworn statement, that I hit a lieutenant so hard that his head bounced off his shoulder, right? And I'm not sure how your head bounces off the shoulder. Nonetheless, a sworn statement. But here's the problem with that. I was never alone. I was never alone that entire time. There's always a staff around me, right? Because I was with my Marines, so I was never alone. Even when I went to take a dump, they were watching me, right? Because you have to have a guardian, right? To make sure that you didn't get shot while taking a dump. So I was never alone. So when they questioned the lieutenant, he said he was never hit. He said he never went to talk to her. So she made a false statement, and she was never held accountable. A sworn statement besmirching a lieutenant colonel's reputation. I think that's a court-martial offense. So this type of Machiavellian rumor control that started, and I'll tell you what, I would accept full responsibility for what happened, the good and the bad. But I will not accept responsibility for the captain, that pushing incident, because that wasn't on my watch. That unit was directly under the MU. And this is the cowardice in a lot of officers that we see, that they refuse to accept responsibility. Right? And to this day, they haven't accepted responsibility for Afghanistan. Yet they claim to be, I'm such a good leader, and all this happy horse shit. Maybe they need to read your books, the fundamentals of leadership, right? Because it'll remind them where they started out at. And that stuff is gold. And I'll tell you why it's gold is because it takes you all the way back to what we were taught in TBS as young officers. And it still holds true. And these people have forgotten about it, and nobody's called them out on it. And it's basically it's this fraternity of senior officers that cover each other's ass. And that's why I admire Lieutenant Colonel Schiller. I mean, we can sit there and talk about it, how he went about it and all that stuff, but he was simply asking for accountability. Simply asking for accountability, and they threw him in the brig. And that's where Berger, I know Berger like the back of my hand, failed him, right? He should have brought him in, sat him down, cup of coffee, and listened to him and said, hey, you're absolutely right. We need to get accountability, and I'll look into it. That's all he was asking for. But we destroyed him, his family, and all that stuff. And now he may become the Undersecretary of Personnel and Readiness. So it may be too late when you publish this, but I just posted an episode where the current Undersecretary of Personnel and Readiness is involved in a major scandal. Evidently he was trolling on Bumblebee or some app, and got involved in a relationship with the astrologer. And as a result of that, it's turned into a scandal, right? Because he didn't disclose that relationship. So
Wow, amazing. Well, I will say this, Asad, before we wrap it up, relative to senior leaders that won't do the right thing. There's a plaque hanging right up on my wall uh, that says by the ancient philosopher Seneca,
Yeah.
and it says it's a simple several words: a man's character is his fate. And I will tell you, these guys that you speak of, and many who you aren't speaking of, they can get along in the military. They can get along in the world. And they can actually, by all accounts, be really good, do good, promoted and all of that. But much like a beautiful mansion, it's just beautiful looking home, pool, all that. If it's built on a faulty foundation, eventually that structure is going to have big problems, if not collapse.
Yes.
And these guys that you're talking about, they didn't just develop for defective character. They had it from the start.
Yep.
And they got into positions where they were put at a fork in the road. Do the right thing or take the easy way out. Don't make waves. Everybody wants Khan's ass. The general wants his ass. I'm not going to fight for Assad, even though I just told him 10 days ago he's kicking ass. He's put in for a Silver Star and all that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go belly up on the guy. And so I'll say this. For the young officers and NCOs listening to this, and the guys that aren't even born that are going to hear this someday, Asad Khan is a hard and high standard to live up to. So you may be asking, you may be wearing a uniform right now saying, can I be this guy? Can I be this kind of leader? And I say you absolutely can, if you decide up front, that's the kind of leader I want to be. I am going to be that kind of leader, bold, aggressive. I am going to do the right thing every time, not necessarily the correct thing.
Right.
And they can be. And Assad, you'd be the first one to say it. You're not the only one in the Marine Corps. Even still, there's still some Asad Khans out there.
Of course there are, yeah. I hope so, yeah.
There's not many of them, and unfortunately, the Marine Corps and the military for a few decades has systematically not rewarded guys like that. And so what they have rewarded breeds further plump lambs to get into command situations and all of that. And so I'll get off my soapbox now, my friend. This is about a 2-hour episode. I'm not editing anything. This was gold. And you have dropped some real wisdom and words to live by on this one, my friend. And I got to tell you, I saw you get choked up about, dropping ordnance, lives are at stake. And I got goosebumps because, I've been in a couple situations like that. And for those who haven't felt that, to where, hey, it's time. I mean, guys are going to die. I mean, you are on the spot and you can influence things. And actually don't quit and make sure the right thing is done. And dropping that ordinance was the right thing to do. Was there risk? Yes. Did you manage and mitigate the risk? Absolutely. But what if you hadn't have dropped it?
Right.
Never know. We'll never know. You'll never know, my friend. But I suspect you would have had more KIAs and definitely more WIAs in that battalion. So there are children and grandchildren that are going to be born whose father would have never been alive had you not dropped that ordinance. And that's one way to look at it. So you've done a real service to mankind and your Marines, my friend. So with that, I will leave it. Any last words before we part ways for today?
No, I mean, yeah. So, I really enjoyed it. The only thing I would say is you don't want to be me. Just be yourself and do the best you can
Yeah.
and to be the best version of yourself. And just be authentic and genuinely care about your Marines. I mean, if you care about them, they will return it tenfold. And that to me is the fuel that keeps me going. All those medals and promotions and all that stuff's horseshit. Honest to God, I would go back as a second lieutenant today. I think I'm still physically fit to be able to do that, and I would have no problem. You can, and when you were telling that they're promoted staff sergeants and first sergeants to second lieutenant, I'm sitting here thinking, why? Why would a first sergeant want to be a second lieutenant? You're a first sergeant, you're first shirt. But nonetheless, rank is just there as as part of it is for established authority, and rank is there as a pay grade. That's what it is. But don't live by your rank. Don't hide behind it. Just be a man and just be the best version of yourself. That's the best advice I can give you. And be genuine and just every day make it count. So you never go into combat. And I'll tell you what, there wasn't a single day in combat that I regretted not doing something back at Camp Lejeune because we did everything. And we focused on it. We had a documented training plan, and we executed every element of it. And, and some of it we didn't use. Some of the training that we did, we didn't use. We didn't have to, right? We're in a different circumstance. But you owe it to your Marines, you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to your family because you need to come back to your family as well. And I think that's so damn important. So on that note, I thank you once again, Mike. I appreciate it. And Semper Fi.
Well, Semper Fi to you, my friend, and we're going to get into what you just said in part 3 if you'll grace us with your presence.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you again, my friend, and for the audience out there. I can't say enough about this episode. If you haven't watched Asad Khan Part 1, please go back on my website, combatleadership.com, the YouTube channel, whatever, and you'll be able to listen to it or watch it or whatever. And so have a great day, leaders, and as always, go forth and lead well.
We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe, rate, review, and recommend to your friends. Please visit our website at combatleadership.com. Until next time, remember the words of the ancient philosopher Plato. Only the dead have seen the end of war.